Let Me Tell You a Story is a product of Carolina Storyteller, starring Jonathan Phoenix, written, produced, and directed by Jonathan Phoenix, edited and recorded by Jonathan Phoenix, and horribly marketed by Jonathan Phoenix. Man, I gotta hire a staff. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/Carolina Storyteller and subscribe to get exclusive content and all kinds of other neat stuff. We even have merchandise coming. Anyway, sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the show, folks. Really glad to have you here on our new night and time. That's right, we moved from Sundays to Saturdays. Was kind of just a spur-of-the-moment decision that I made, but I think it's going to do better for the broadcast. Hope you guys have had a great week. I've got a really interesting story for you. But to segue into it, let's talk about a little-known production that came out a few years ago. I mean, maybe you've heard about it. It's this stage show called Hamilton. Honestly, if you've been living under the rock for the past 5 years, maybe you haven't heard of Hamilton, but everybody else has heard of Hamilton. Everybody else probably has a favorite character from the show Hamilton. I know me personally, it's George Washington. That character, him and Thomas Jefferson, two of them. Just wonderful performances there. But the story of Alexander Hamilton, as you know, he was the first Secretary of Treasury underneath George Washington, and he had a rivalry with a man named Aaron Burr. Now, if you're wondering who Aaron Burr was our second vice president. That's right, second VP of the United States of America. That's not too shabby of a thing to be able to claim. And Burr and Hamilton ended up in 1804 having a fateful duel in which Burr shot Hamilton and killed him. And of course, this led to even more of a downward spiral for Aaron Burr. But today's story isn't about Aaron Burr. No, I want to talk about his daughter, Theodosia Burr Alston. She was the former First Lady of the state of South Carolina. And she had a very interesting story. Sit back and I'll tell you about it. Theodosia Burr was the daughter of Aaron Burr, of course, the former vice president. And while her father was vice president, she met and fell in love with a South Carolina rice planter named John Alston, who eventually made his way to state senate and then the state governor, making her, I believe, the third first lady of the state of South Carolina. Now, Theodosia and her father had regular correspondence continuously, but after the duel with Alexander Hamilton, her father found himself in more and more trouble, even at one point being charged with treason and having to leave the country. And this weighed heavily on Theodosia. In fact, at one point in time, she said that she felt that the separation for her father weighed on her so heavily that the end was near. And she would be ill, physically ill, just from the worry about her father being gone and not being around and not being able to communicate with him as she had. So eventually, of course, Aaron Burr got out of all of that trouble, and he sent for Theodosia to come visit in New York City. So Theodosia made plans, but during those plans, America was attacked. We went to war, the War of 1812 to be exact. That's right, England decided to show back up and start more stuff because that's what England does, really. They weren't really happy that we had taken over their job of taking over stuff, so they wanted to come back and take over the stuff that they had already taken over. And with the War of 1812, they had put up blockades along the East Coast. Now, understand, most travel back then was not done over land, it was done by sea, because that's how you could get anywhere faster, By land, it would have taken weeks. By sea, it would have taken a few days. So the governor of South Carolina gave his wife a writ. And that writ was to protect their passage through the English blockade so she could go to New York and see her father Aaron. And the night before she was supposed to leave, she stayed at a house on Front Street in Georgetown. There, she danced and celebrated with her husband, and they had a wonderful time. The next day, she boarded a ship known as the Patriot, along with her doctors and I believe it was her priest, and her maidens, and they set sail for New York. But the Patriot was never heard from again. When the Patriot disappeared, of course a search went out, but no one had seen the ship after it left the port in Georgetown, South Carolina. They searched the waters, they looked for wreckage, but nothing ever came of it. Theodosia's father, Aaron, of course, resigned that his daughter was lost at sea, believing that were she alive, she would come to him. Now, over the years, many rumors were spread of Theodosia that she had ran off with a pirate and was living on some island with them somewhere, or that she had been taken captive by a pirate and tortured and killed. There were many who claimed that Theodosia had been with them for the longest period of time, deathbed confessions of seeing her, but there was never any evidence to back these up. Theodosia and the Patriot set sail in 1812 from Georgetown, South Carolina, and were never seen again. That is, until Theodosia was seen again, at least in spirit. Within a year of the disappearance of the Patriot, rumors began to spread that Theodosia had been seen in Georgetown. And it wasn't long before someone had seen her walking along the street, the same one that she had walked, just hours before boarding that ship and sailing off into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, of course, her husband had come to find her, but she was not there. They believed that it was her spirit. Then reports started coming from the house that was located at the corner of Queen Street and Front Street in Georgetown, that Theodosia still danced in its halls, climbed its stairs, stared out the window towards the ocean. But none ever saw her during the day. But many saw her at night, in her white dress, climbing down the stairs, or dancing with an invincible partner, most likely supposed to be her husband, now a widower. Theodosia disappeared that day. Her father bore the loss, as did her husband, as did the state of South Carolina. And while rumors swirled, the only thing that people knew was that the house at the corner of Queen and Front Street always had a woman that bore a resemblance appearing in the night. Now today that house is known as the Harriet Tabot House. And Theodosia actually isn't the only spirit with connections to maritime happenings there. It seems there's also the spirit of a young woman who fell in love with a ship's captain in the early 1800s, and her father denied the two of them to make contact, so he made sure that the ship had to dock out and could never make port in Georgetown. And they would communicate using lights, and she would wait for her captain, her love, to come, and he never did. And supposedly, after she grew old and died, as an old woman surrounded by many pets. Her spirit still walks the house along with Theodosia, and you will still see the light in the window signaling out to her love, hoping that he will come ashore and visit her. And people who visit the house claim to hear phantom pets, her dogs and cats that had lived with her until she passed on, still inhabiting the grounds of the old house. So if you ever do visit Georgetown and you ever do make your way down to this house, it's on the corner of Queen and Front Street. Keep an eye out for the little Poochie ghosts. See if you can see the ghost of Theodosia Burr. Maybe you can find out what nobody else did. Maybe you can find out what happened to the Patriot. That's our show for tonight, friends. I really hope you enjoyed hearing the story of Theodosia Alston and the Patriot, the ship that never was found. If you like this story and you want to know more about the history of Georgetown, you can always look up Georgetown, South Carolina ghosts. You'll find all kinds of interesting things. They even have ghost tours in the town where you can actually go to some of these places that I've mentioned in my stories before and actually tour the haunted locations. And maybe you'll see the ghost for yourself. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again next week. And remember, if you want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/Carolina Storyteller. There you can find exclusive content, including my readings of the short stories Legend of Thok, The Hitchhiker, and Of Wolf and Men. But that's it for me tonight. See you next week.